Hi, readers. So Oak Bloke here, and I'm going to try and remember what I said yesterday about DEC. So it was, I think it was really just the main part of my recording, which I'm trying to remember what I said. But the main part of the recording was it was a fairly quick recording, and it was just focused on the news of the buybacks. I saw some people in the chatosphere saying, "Oh well, it's only 6%. Oh, what a load of rubbish." Um, when is it ever good? Anyway, let's kind of have a look at the numbers and let's look at what they mean. So what I did was I just worked through the numbers mathematically. So if just sort of do a quick recap, this is the you may recognize this from a prior article. So this was the position as at September last year. This was the position of Maverick as at September last year. That was then the combination of the pair. So obviously that was the dilution. And then there was further harumphing as a placing was made, and that was the money that came in from the placing. So there was 9.35 million shares. So that brought us then to just under 81 million. So they've announced buybacks that will be, as I say, 5.87% based on maximum of 4.75 million shares. Now, there is an upper limit on the money side, but the share price would have to go up by quite a lot for it to bust through. So I haven't considered that as well. I mean, if it happens, great, fantastic. I'm sure that will be not. We wouldn't want to buybacks at any price anyway. So anyway, that's 5.87%. So that would that 4.75 million, that number there, would bring the shares in issue back down to something like 76 million. And what I've done, I mean, and this is based upon it being, I'm not factoring in future profit or current period profit to any of these numbers. So essentially, the money for the buybacks I'm adding to debt, okay, which I'm not saying the debt's going to go up, because of course the reality is that free cash flow is also coming in, so that number is coming back down, but I'm just excluding any future numbers. Okay, this is just based upon the year-end numbers. Okay, or in fact, sorry, no, it's not even based on the year-end numbers. This is based on the position as at 30/09/24. Okay, but just modeling through kind of what that would look like for a shareholder. And of course, yes, the debt goes up and the shares go down, whoopee doo. It's only really when you start to look at it on a per share basis that it starts to kind of shine through. So I've put that in this bit by here. So you can see the debt per share, okay, because obviously that debt's going up, inverted commas. That would equate to an increase of debt, and I've put it down here, an increase of debt of $2.56 per share. So that number to that number, $2.56. So that's kind of like the cost of the buyback, okay, equivalent. But what do you get for your money? That's the question, isn't it? That's the question. So as you can see, a 6% or 5.87% buyback, equals a 6%. You can sort of see that across the board, and obviously if we make that a bit bigger, it's 6.24. So 5.87 margin is a 6.24 markup, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. Anyway. That's kind of the net benefit. So what we're talking about is that 6.24% on earnings would equal 72 cents per year. Okay, and of course, if we say, well, that's the return and that's the cost, then that equals a 28%, 28.2% ROI, which is pretty good. And you can see why DEC are saying that this is an accretive buyback at this price, that the share is deeply discounted. Well, it must be, for it to be generating a 28.2% return. Okay, and then the increase in PV10, so it's this number here. Okay, so that number to that number is $4.60. So it's costing you 256 and you're getting 460 is pretty much the impact of the buybacks. However, I mean, a further thing was people were saying, oh, well, you know, it's all only going to happen in dribs and drabs. Yes. And why is that? Well, let's go back to sort of thinking about the repayment schedule. And this is the new repayment schedule based upon the ABS X, ABS 10. That 530, and of course there's been a new announcement that they're talking about refinancing into bonds, so maybe that means that all of these ABSs will be toast and gone, and certainly the RCF will be toast and gone. So it's a moving feast, it's not standing still. There is an update from DEC saying that they're talking about issuing bonds, and of course bonds would replace the ABS structures, and and probably replace some of this cost of debt here of 8.9 and 8.1, and this one's the third highest. Replace that with perhaps a lower interest rate. And of course, if we could get a lower interest rate, I mean, the cost of interest is here. I mean, that at the moment so this is up until June of this year. So the interest costs for interim period to interim period is going to be sort of roughly 107 million according to my calculation. That again, this is sort of backwards looking numbers, but the problem, the reason I don't believe that there'll be very substantial buybacks for a few months, much as they would add value and all the rest of it, is simply this bit by here, the deferred considerations. You can see here this 72 million is a big chunk of change, and this is the money for Oaktree. But that money for Oaktree kind of gets paid off by about July, end of July, maybe middle of August, something like that. Okay, so there's still going to be a chunk of it up until then. But of course, once that drops away, then the interest costs drop. You can see there, the difference year to year. That's mainly down to you can see the difference there to there. The difference is mainly down to the Oaktree accelerated repayments being completed. Everything else, you can see sort of all of these pretty much remains static in terms of this is the repayment schedule of the amortization of loans. So that means essentially it's the repayment of capital. Whereas this down here is the repayment of interest on the capital. Okay, so essentially, these are capital repayments, whereas these are interest charges. These would appear on the P&L, whereas these would appear in the cash flow statement, and also on, obviously, it affects the balance sheet because obviously the debt level would go down and the cash levels would correspondingly go down. Okay, so I think that we won't see vast numbers of buybacks until after Oaktree, just because that's where that's going to sort of mean a difference of about 70 million per 6 months, so 140 million a year of cash flow that won't be directed towards Oaktree. So obviously the cash flow itself has increased. I mean, again, based on the September to September numbers, we're looking at 345. Obviously, in the year-end results, it's a lot higher. It's 530, if I'm not mistaken. So just go in and have a little squizzy. Sorry, 420. Apologies. So yeah, they're obviously looking at cash flow rising. So maybe I'm being overly pessimistic, but I just get a sense that the buybacks will accelerate after Oaktree, just because that's obviously a big chunk of cash that's getting diverted to pay down debt. So all very positive. That pretty much was the video. I don't think there's very much else to add. I mean, other than obviously it's highly accretive. It's all very, it's good for shareholders. At the end of the 5.7, sorry, 5.87, who knows? I mean, maybe they would start another buyback program. There's no reason not to. And if the shares are still at $13, $14, then obviously this, the mathematics of this makes perfect sense, doesn't it? I mean, obviously, if we boosted that up, I mean, let's say what, $20. If we say that's now $20, okay, cost of buybacks rises to that, and that obviously then changes the dynamic of the of the calculation. So I think this here is, yeah, so I think if we sort of change this here to say this would sorry, I should have just put the calculation here. So if we just launch that off there, obviously that now rises, so the additional debt is now $3 at a $20 DEC price. The cost is $3. So the ROI drops from 28% to 24%. Still good, but obviously not as attractive, as it would be if they were buying them at $13. Okay, so I suspect, yeah, that's that calculation there is obviously going to drop as well, and yeah, that's pretty much it anyway from me. I'll move him back into, let's move him back to 13 so I don't forget, and then sort of think, right, why are the numbers not what I left them as? So that's all from me for Oak Bloke. My Substack's at oakbloke.substack.com. So you can obviously read that article and others there. This video, by the way, isn't in a specific article, so this is bonus content, because I know quite a lot of people don't like watching these videos. That's their loss and your gain. Cheerio from me, cheerio.